Hi, everyone, and welcome to Spotlight with Scientists in School. Today, I am joined by Patience Cathcart, who is a data scientist and a public safety officer at Electrical Safety Authority. Welcome to the show, Patience.
Thank you so much for having me today.
Yeah, this is really exciting because I love that your background is in the arts. You speak 3 languages, and yet you are working in data science. So how did that come to be? Tell me a little bit about your journey.
Yeah, sure. Thanks for asking. It was very strange. I certainly did go to university and I studied French, German, and Spanish. And then when I finished, I started working at the Electrical Safety Authority as a French and English speaking customer service representative. So I was helping people take out permits for inspection. And when I started working for the company, I just thought it was really cool. It was a really great place to work. I love what we stand for. I love that we're able to help people stay safe in Ontario. So that includes, my friends and family, and myself included. So it's very rewarding, and I just had, I felt very lucky to be able to work for the organization.
So let's talk a little bit about electricity. Like we kind of take it for granted. It's everywhere, right? Let's talk about where does electricity actually even come from?
This is such a great question,
Yeah.
Betty. And it's so important because we absolutely take it for granted.
Yeah.
We have something that we say in the company, which is we're born with the lights on and we just expect it to always be that way. So in Ontario, we get energy from the earth, we get energy from the sun, from wind, and also from water. So we're really lucky that we have all of those sources in Ontario. And for other sources that we have them in Canada. So we're even luckier to be part of a country that then has the resources. So when I say we get energy from the earth, what I mean is nuclear energy. So that comes from uranium, which is a mineral. There's a reaction that happens with uranium and that releases steam. And when the steam is released, it's released to a turbine and it makes the turbine spin. So a turbine, as you might imagine, is kind of like a big fan. So it makes that spin. And when the turbine spins, it creates energy. So that's one way that we get energy, and we call that nuclear from uranium. We get energy from the sun. So from a solar perspective, you may see if you're driving around Ontario out in fields, you'll see big, huge square tiles in fields, and there'll be rows of them, and they're usually black or dark blue. And what's happening there is that energy is coming from the sun, and as soon as it hits those tiles, it's being converted into electricity. And that electricity is then being taken away by wiring that comes from the solar panels. For wind, you may also see wind turbines around Ontario. So there's some places in northern and southern Ontario, lots of places around Windsor, for example, lots of places along the big lakes that we have, where you'll see those wind turbines spinning, and that's generating a lot of energy. In addition to that, we also have water. So we have Niagara Falls, which is huge, right? So imagine if we look at Niagara Falls and we see all the power that comes from that water, that is also turning turbines and it's creating energy for us. So we have lots of different sources of energy in Ontario. Then in Canada, we also have natural gas. So you may have heard of natural gas. Lots of people have it in our homes. And we also have coal. And we are also working on tidal energy. So natural gas is basically gas that's trapped in the earth. So we put pipes down in that, it comes up out of the earth and it turns turbines to create the energy. We have coal, so that's also a substance that comes from the earth. Again, coal produces steam when it's heated, which then also produces, can turn the turbine and produces energy that way. And then tidal energy is really cool. This is on either coast of Canada. So we have it out in BC and out in Nova Scotia, Newfoundland, and New Brunswick that they're working on this. And what tidal energy does is it uses the currents of the ocean to turn turbines, which then create energy. So we have all of these amazing sources. We're so incredibly lucky. And so anytime you're out driving around, I encourage you to kind of take a look and just think about the fact that these are all different ways that we're able to produce a ton of energy in Canada and Ontario specifically.
That was a great overview on all the different ways that we can harness energy in Ontario and in Canada. That was great. Now, there is this global ambition, let's say, that by 2050, we will have zero carbon emissions.
Yes. So this is a serious goal. And globally, from sustainability environmental efforts, it's very important that all of the countries participate in the UN's goals for sustainability in order to meet this. What we mean when we say, that we're going to have all this demand is that we are expanding and we're building constantly, and we have a lot of population increasing across the globe, but also in Ontario, right here where we are. So what we have to do is we have to consider how much energy we currently have. And like I said, we produce lots, so that's good, but how do we get it out to everyone? And so currently, the companies that bring the energy to our homes or buildings around us, office buildings, schools, hospitals, they're looking at all the new ways that they are going to be able to transport that electricity, and they're beefing up the systems. So they're adding wiring, they're adding more equipment so that they can make sure that we're going to be able to transport that energy. And also, if you look at, for example, solar, if you're in a neighborhood where you see someone has solar panels on their house, that feeds right to their house. So they don't need any more wiring. That's already feeding their house singularly. So there's nothing else that has to come to them, which is great. But from the other sources of energy that we produce, like nuclear, for example, we do have to also keep up on those power plants. We have to make sure that they're upgraded, that they're ready, that they can continue to produce nuclear energy. We have to make sure that at Niagara Falls, there's always going to be a good water supply coming in, and then also that plant is going to be able to stay there and withstand water erosion over time. So those are always being reviewed and upgraded to make sure that they're being maintained so that we can continue to produce into 2050.
How can we be smarter about our electricity use then? What are some things that we can do and kids can do?
If you're leaving your house or you're leaving a room, turn off your lights. It's a great way to just conserve some electricity. Anytime that you're not using something, your electronics, unplug them. If you're charging your phone and it's charged, unplug it. If you're charging your car, if you have an electrical vehicle at home and it's charged, unplug it. Other things like today, like it was a nice sunny day this morning, so I had all my blinds open rather than having the lights on in my office here. So those are some ways that we can think about how to conserve energy and electricity more specifically.
So I was wondering if kids are interested in electricity and they want to become an electrician, how do you go about doing that? And what's so rewarding about that career?
Sure. Well, we would be so excited to hear that there's kids excited about becoming electricians or being involved in electricity. There will be lots of jobs coming in the years coming. We expect that by 2025, there'll be a large demand for trades. So we're very excited for any individuals that are looking towards these types of careers. And in a big way, I think everything that I've heard from electricians is that they really like that no 2 days are the same. So they're always, going to somebody's house or going to an office or a school to do different types of wiring or problem solve some electricity issues that they're having there. So there's lots of different things that are available, and they're helping people solve problems, but also what they do is very dangerous. And I think in that regard, they kind of are heroes because people shouldn't be touching electrical work if they don't know what they're doing. So electricians are the heroes for us because they know what they're doing. They can go in and do it safely and solve our problems while keeping us safe. Also in high schools, they usually have some tech courses. So you can get some hands-on experience. You can learn how to wire up a switch, for example. You learn what light bulbs work and that kind of thing. Also working with electronics. There's usually some electronics courses offered in high schools and technology classes now. And then from there, what you would do is go to college to pursue it a little bit further, learn more information, and there you would get a certificate. So you become a certified electrician, for example. And there's certain electricians that also can work across Canada. They write a special exam and they can work anywhere in the country, which is pretty cool. And then in addition to that, you can become a master electrician. So you have to be an electrician for a period of time. But then it's basically, you have to demonstrate you have some experience and you write an exam. Or if you're very entrepreneurial, you can become a licensed electrical contractor. So you can go out and start your own business, you get a master electrician, or you become one yourself, and you can provide electrical contracting services to anybody in Ontario. So there's lots of different things that anyone could consider doing as an electrician in particular.
And we'll stress leave the work to a professional.
Yes, please.
Yeah. What if you're interested in electricity? Are there other careers aside from an electrician?
Yes, there's actually
Okay.
so many. Yeah.
Okay.
So I mentioned a little bit that there's some electronics would be involved with that. So anything electronic, then you're looking at anything that's computer oriented. You're looking at electronic chips, anything like that, robotics, automation. In addition to that, though, there's also engineers and technologists. Electrical engineers and technologists create plans. So, for example, if you're looking to put up a new, big, huge building where you're going to have like 100 offices in that building, they would create all the plans for that and make sure that everything is wired properly and it's going to be safe for all the people that are going to be in there. You could also be a scientist. So, for example, how I was explaining that there's tidal energy is being discovered along the coast of Canada. Any other sources of energy that could be used in the future. Those are other ways that scientists get involved and look at different things that we have in our natural environment that can help us produce energy. And then we also have folks like power line workers. So those lines that you see that are strung from pole to pole as you drive around out in the country or within the city, those are power line workers that maintain those. And it's, again, really dangerous. It's really high voltage electricity that they're dealing with. So they're very, very specifically trained and are very, very technical folks. And then, of course, you've also got the Electrical Safety Authority. So at our organization, we have inspectors and we have technical advisors, and these are super brains. They have every piece of knowledge you could possibly imagine about electrical installations and systems and electricity and how energy is produced. So there's lots of variety of different ways that you can be involved in something with electricity if you're looking at a career.
That's great. Thank you for that. And since you mentioned Electrical Safety Authority, the word safety is right in there. So let's talk a little bit about how can we promote awareness and education and train people on how to be safe.
Sure. And this is so important to me as the public safety officer. So this interview is so important. And just being able to speak to individuals about safety is so important. And also for kids, because you understand, you know what you're supposed to do around electrical systems, and you're a great person to tell your mom and dad about it, maybe some smaller brothers or sisters that you have at home, friends, anybody who might listen. This is a great way to get the messages across. And we also have eSmart Kids, which is interactive, and that's something that you can share with your family at home. So again, if you have little brothers or sisters, or you can share it with your parents and go through it with them, that's a great, great way to get messages across. I encourage you to take a look when you're driving again or walking maybe on your route to school. If you see poles that have the big green, it's like fluorescent green, and it says look up, look out. And that's an indicator that you're always supposed to be looking up for power lines, and particularly if there's construction happening. Because, for example, with those dump trucks, they can leave their buckets up and hit the lines. Same thing with bulldozers, they can leave their buckets up, or anybody else that might be around the power lines. I think one of the most important things that I want to stress is if you're ever in a situation where you see a power line that has come down, so maybe there's an accident, or maybe somehow the power line broke and it came down, it's probably still full of electricity and it's very dangerous. So no one should go near it. You should stay at least a school bus length away from it and call 911, and they'll know who to call to come out and make sure that that site is safe so that nobody gets hurt, because it's extremely dangerous. And I think when people see that the power line is down, they think it's not working anymore, but it usually is, and it's very dangerous. So that's a really important message I wanted to get across today.
So how can we prevent some common electrical injuries at home? What can we do inside our house?
Yeah, this is a great question too, because we're actually seeing a lot of fires with young people and fabric. So their fabric is touching their electronics. And if you're using a tablet or a phone, you may notice it gets really hot. And the reason it gets really hot is because there's a battery in there. And that battery, when you plug it in, tends to get really hot. And so I think maybe sometimes what's happening is you're chatting with your friends and then your mom and dad come to check on you to see if you're actually asleep, and you shove that under your covers and maybe fall asleep. And so we really want you to keep your electronics away from fabric. And then, in terms of other stuff that we have around our houses, sometimes we have power bars. And I have an example of what a power bar is here. So this is what a power bar looks like. So you plug lots of things into it at once. This should never, ever be used permanently. You only want to use it when you really have to. You should never have things long-term plugged into a power bar. It's very dangerous. And also things like extension cords, they're tripping hazards. So you want to keep those away from where people might be walking around. And finally, I'd also say approval stickers. So right now, I'm very guilty of this. But what you always want to do when you get it is check to make sure there's an approval sticker on there. And there'll be some information in your package about the approval marks. You want to make sure that approval sticker is on there because that means somebody checked it to make sure it's safe. So those are some things that we should always be looking for when we're buying products that plug in.
What about anything outside, flying a kite, climbing a tree? What about any of those things? What should kids be concerned about or look out for?
Yes, yes. So those are great examples. So if you're hanging out outside, and definitely if you're flying a kite, if you're climbing a tree, if you're playing with a drone, and you notice there's a power line, stay away from it. So if that power line is going through the tree, that means that there's a good chance that you could be electrocuted by touching that power line if you're up that tree. And not even on purpose. You might be up the tree and turn around and your back hits it. It will electrocute you. So you want to stay away from anything like that. You also say you're helping mom and dad outside and you have a ladder out. Maybe you're cleaning gutters along the top of the house, after the fall or in the springtime. If you have a ladder up there and you see there's power lines, keep that ladder very far away from those power lines. They're very dangerous and they will electrocute you. So that can be, a devastating experience, and it's really easy to just stay away from them. So just always have it in mind that you're looking up, you're looking out, and you're staying away from those power lines. Another thing is that I see quite often when I'm walking my dog around my neighborhood is that people plant beautiful gardens around those ugly green boxes that are on
I was just going to ask you about the green boxes. What should we do with those? Can kids sit on them? What can we do?
Oh, leave them alone. Just leave them be. Just accept that they're ugly and that's where they need to be. We try to paint them green so they blend in with the grass, but
right.
At the end of the day, they're very dangerous, actually. And so we want to stay away from those too. And we don't want to plant anything around them because they have lines running underground and up into those boxes. So if you're digging down, you might hit a line. So again, very dangerous. We want to stay away from those.
Great tips. I love all this. Thank you. Are you game for a short true and false game about electricity?
Let's do it.
To wrap this up. Number 1, electricity can be created from animal waste.
Yes, that's true. It's called bioenergy. Yes.
Very cool. Iceland is the country which uses the most electricity annually.
No, that's not true. I think China is probably the biggest user of electricity, but Iceland does have really cool ways of generating electricity. And I think it's Zac Efron.
Yes, I saw that episode.
Yeah, Down to Earth. Did you see that with the thermal energy?
Yes.
So cool. So if you want to have an idea of what many of the things that I've talked about today actually look like, it's a great episode. It's called Down to Earth by Zac Efron.
It is awesome. Electricity is in our bodies.
Yes, that's also true. So if you've ever heard that somebody needed to get a pacemaker, or for example, anytime you move, your arm or your hands or your head, all of those rely on electrical impulses that go to your brain in order to make that movement happen.
Cool. Electricity travels at the speed of light.
Okay, so this one is interesting. I think somebody would get a lot of different answers for this one. It's not quite at the speed of light. It's just a little bit slower.
LED light bulbs use 80% less electricity.
Yes, definitely true. So if you have incandescent light bulbs at home, you should try to switch those out for LEDs.
LED. Okay, and the last one, electric eels can produce a 600-volt shock.
Yes, that's true. So, which is really, that's almost considered actually high voltage. So,
wow.
So like a power line, like that's almost the
Yeah.
equivalent of that level of shock. So yeah, and the eel actually produces this impulse inside of its whole body. So that's how it doesn't actually shock itself, because its entire body is energized, which is pretty wild.
So stay away from electric eels too.
Definitely stay away.
Patience, thanks so much. I think this is really great to share with kids, with teachers, with parents on how we can stay safe, because we all need electricity in our lives, but we all need to stay safe. So thank you so much.
You're very welcome. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.